Meeting for August 19th, 2025. Let's mute our cell phones and other electronic devices just so we don't get interrupted as we're going about our business. Ask our Deputy Manager, Kristen Kazinas, to do a roll call for attendance.
Trustee Handler.
Here.
Trustee Albinson.
Here.
Trustee Orstick.
Here.
Trustee Apatoff. President Dearborn.
Here. Thank you, Kristen. I'll ask Trustee Apatoff to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Trustee Apatoff, for that. Kristen, why don't we do a quorum check?
Okay, our September 2nd regular meeting is canceled. Does everyone expect to attend on September 9th, where we'll have a combined study session and regular meeting?
I might be out of town.
And then September 16th.
All good.
Okay, thank you for that. Item 4, public comment. I'll ask if anyone in the audience wants to speak about an item that's not on tonight's agenda. Feel free to come forward and introduce yourself and tell us what you're thinking.
Good evening, and I brought a copy of my remarks for the record. Who do I give those to? You? Thank you. Hi, I'm Fran Edwardson, and I live at 301 Sheridan Road, next to Elder Lane Park. Since the dog beach at Centennial Park reopened with a supposed leash requirement, lower lake levels, and no fencing, we have had multiple dogs coming into our yard from the dog beach. They're traveling nearly a quarter of a mile from Centennial, across the 261 Sheridan Road and Elder Lane beaches, then onto our property, up our stairs, and into our yard. They have neither leashes nor owners with them. I'm grateful that our grandchildren weren't outside, as they could have been put in harm's way. Worse yet, the dogs could have come up in Elder Park, right near that tot lot, or at our next door neighbor's home, where they have young children who play in the yard all the time. Elder Lane Park is used by lots of kids, including the toddlers at the playground, the junior Trevians who use it for sports practice, and the teenagers who park there when they're attending New Trier. Elder Lane is a people park. They don't allow dogs, whether on leash or off leash, under the Winnetka, the Winnetka Park District ordinances. Now, I have firsthand experience with an attacking dog, and I know the serious injuries that they can cause. In 2020, when I was walking my leash dog, Toby, he was tackled and dragged into Elder Lane Park by a very large, unleashed, uncollared dog. That German Shepherd pinned my dog down and began to eat my dog alive until the owner was able to pull the attacking dog off. It was horrifying. But it still could have been worse. What if that dog had attacked me instead? Or what if it had gone after one of the children playing in that park next door? While we all love our dogs, they can be dangerous animals. That's why we have laws that regulate them. Whether on the beach, in the parks, or on the streets, dogs should not be roaming unleashed in Winnetka. It presents an important public safety risk, which should be given the highest priority. Not just the law, but common sense dictates that a dog beach must be fenced. This is not the Park District's problem alone. The village's own leash laws specifically declare that unleashed dogs off the owner's property are a public nuisance. Our zoning ordinances also put this squarely in front of the village. The plastic construction fencing that's up at Elder Lane Beach right now isn't going to keep the dogs from roaming very long. 2 recent surveys done by the Park District and the caucus indicate that the full reopening of Elder Lane Beach is one of our community's highest priorities. Our beaches should be safe for all beachgoers and park visitors. Resilient fencing creates a safe and enjoyable environment for everyone and mitigates the risks of unintended encounters between dogs and human beings. The Army Corps and IDNR's review of the Park District's temporary dog beach fence application is nearly complete. I urge the village to cooperate with all of its fellow governmental agencies and grant all necessary approvals for the temporary dog fence as quickly as you possibly can. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Anyone else interested in making public comment tonight? Okay, we'll close public comment and move on to reports. Trustees, we'll start down with Trustee Handler. Trustee Albinson.
No report.
Trustee Orsic.
No report.
Trustee Apatow. Village Attorney. And our Deputy Village Manager.
I do have a brief report. I'd like to introduce John Lynch, our Interim Economic Development Coordinator, and Terry Dason, as you know, the President of the Winnetka-Glencoe Northfield Chamber of Commerce. They're here tonight under the Manager's Report to give Council a brief update on their combined outreach in the business community on the proposed home rule sales tax. As you may recall, the Council directed that staff engage in that effort in collaboration with the Chamber at the July 8th meeting, where the proposed 1% home rule sales tax was first presented by our CFO, Tim Sloth. So at this time, I'd like to invite John and Terry to come to the microphone for a brief update for Council.
Hello, everyone. Nice to see you all here. It's the first time I've been in front of you all since I've been here, since April 1st. So nice to see you all. And Krista, thank you for the invitation to speak. Terry and I both reached out to several businesses to get responses to the sales tax proposal, to get at least initial thoughts. My outreach was mostly by phone, Terry mostly by email. We also hosted a Zoom open house, in which I presented a 10-minute overview of the proposal. In addition to kind of we waited on the open house forum for an hour in case people wanted to drop in. We recorded that, we made it available. Trustee Dahlman and I provided an overview of the proposal to the Chamber Board meeting this month. And so we tried to do what we could to cover bases and get as many folks aware of and solicit feedback for the proposal. In terms of the direct outreach, the two methods, the email versus the phone calls, generated somewhat different responses. But overall, when you combine the results, we had, I guess, roughly around 25 different responses, about 14 in favor, 8 against. The other couple were just neutral, no opinion responses. Terry's email outreach did get more of the against votes. 7 of the 8 people that said they were against the proposal did come via email, which might suggest that those that are against might have taken more time to respond than the general population. Because when contacted by phone, we found that those who answered were 10 to 1 in favor, with 1 no opinion there. So overall, 14 in favor, 18 against. We'll also note the Zoom open house was not terribly well attended, which may suggest that more support or at least neutrality than opposition. My experience has been these types of things tend to draw more opposition than support. So when you don't see anyone really turn up, and we had a very, very small number, that may suggest that it's not a groundswell of opposition to the proposal. Finally, with respect to the Chamber Board meeting this month, my feeling was that the proposal was well supported at the Chamber, but I'll let Terry address that herself to get the responses from her membership.
Thank you, John. Good evening, President Dearborn and trustees of the Village Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight on behalf of the Winnetka Northfield Glencoe Chamber of Commerce. I am here to share why we believe the proposed 1% sales tax is an important step for the vitality of our business community and the future of Winnetka. We recognize that there are differing views within the business community. Not every business owner sees the sales tax as helpful, and we respect those perspectives. But our responsibility as a chamber is to look at the big picture, to consider what will strengthen our business district, attract more visitors, and support the long-term vitality of Winnetka. The reality is that critical projects are on the horizon, projects that will shape the future of our community. The Hubbard Woods streetscape, the Hubbard Woods parking structure, and the Indian Hill Green Bay Road streetscape, to name a few. These are not simply infrastructure improvements, they are essential investments in Winnetka's identity. Streetscapes, parking structures, and even EV charging stations are what make a business district feel modern, accessible, and welcoming. They are the kinds of improvements that draw visitors from beyond our borders, encourage them to linger, and make them want to return again and again. And here's the key point. The funding for those projects will not fall solely on our residents or business owners through property tax increases. Instead, it will be shared. It will come from a broader base. Our residents, yes, but also the thousands of shoppers and diners from neighboring communities who already come here to enjoy all Winnetka has to offer. In short, this is a way to share the burden fairly. Our business owners will not see higher rents due to rising property taxes. Our residents will not be asked to shoulder the entire cost. Yet, both groups will benefit from a revitalized, modernized business district that is attractive, resilient, and future-focused. Let's not underestimate the strength we already have here in Winnetka, which is a thriving community. Our village is known for its charm, its vibrancy, its ability to draw thousands of visitors every year. By investing in these projects through a modest 1% sales tax, we're ensuring that Winnetka not only maintains the vitality, but builds on it. We're creating a business district that meets the needs of today and anticipates the expectations of tomorrow. This is about vision. It's about keeping Winnetka competitive with neighboring communities. It's about ensuring our business districts continue to flourish. And most of all, it's about fairness, about asking everyone who enjoys Winnetka, whether they live here or simply love to visit, to help support the continued growth of our village. The Chamber of Commerce believes this sales tax increase is beneficial. It is the right step to secure the strong, sustainable, and successful future our residents, our businesses, and our visitors all deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry, and thank you, John, very much. This is obviously a topic where additional dialogue is going to be welcomed. We want to stay in touch with the Chamber on this, for sure, and keep talking about it.
Okay.
Because on October 30th, when we have our budget session that everyone will be joining, this will be a topic of discussion, and it's an important one, and we understand all sides of this, so we want to
Yes.
learn more along the way, though.
Okay.
I do want to say, and this is the President's report, thank you. I just want to mention about John Lynch. You know, John engaged, as he mentioned, with the village in early April, and his engagement ends at the end of this month. And I want to take a moment to express our very deep appreciation to John for serving as the interim economic development coordinator during this time frame. He obviously took over from Liz DeChant, big shoes to fill, but John has done admirably in that role. His significant contributions include assistance with the Winnetka Music Festival, the Farmers Market, business retention, and recruitment activities, which have been ongoing throughout the months that John's been involved. And of course, working with the Chamber and Terry. We're grateful, John, for your service, and we wish you all the best in your future endeavors. You won't be a stranger because you're a resident of this town, and we just want to say thank you, for what you did for us over the past several months.
Could I say a word?
Please do, please do.
Thank you for that. I'll just say something very, very briefly. You are beyond kind to thank me. You didn't need to do that. I should be thanking you for bringing me on board, for allowing me to work with this phenomenal staff, with this phenomenal board. Thank you to Trustee Alvinson for referring me and mentioning my name when there was a need. thank you to the staff. It really is a fantastic staff, and I don't want to belabor this, but I should tell you all, the staff here is incredible. I have worked in and around a lot of governments. I've never seen a staff that is so customer service focused as the staff here. The deputy manager and the village manager, all the credit to setting the right tone for how this place operates. People operate with accountability. They take their job seriously, and yet they really focus on the customer service. So they make it a pleasure to work here. So you are right. I will not be a stranger. To serve and work in the community that you live in is an honor. So you will see me in one way or another. You will see me around.
Thank you,
Thank you.
John. We appreciate it. We appreciate it. All right, we'll move on. Item 6, presentations. Item 6A is approval of the September 11th memorial flag planting on the Village Green, and we welcome the Kripe family with us tonight. In 2008, a tradition began to honor the victims of September 11th, 2001 terrorist attacks by placing American flags on the Village Green. This year marks the 24th anniversary of the attacks. Andy Kripe, former trustee Andy Kripe, and his family will present the request, and in our packet, which was public, you may have seen the letter that I think the two young Kripes that are here wrote, and it's really fantastic. They've been involved with this since 2017, I believe, so it's been an enduring project located with the Kripes down at the corner of Elm and Maple, and we all appreciate it. So come on up and make your presentation, introduce yourself, and we'll move forward.
Hello, my name is Julia Kripe, and this is my brother William. We would like to ask for permission to plant flags in the Village Green in honor of the victims of the September 11th attack. Thank you.
Okay, William, would you like to say anything?
I'd like to say thank you for the support in doing this all these years.
Well,
and
thank you.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you for this year.
If you didn't see the letter that William and Julia wrote, it's really nice. And Julia, you were just, I don't know how old you were back in 2017, but you were a pretty young person. And there were a couple other Kripes that were involved with this at the time, and you've kept it going. So thank you for continuing to take the lead on this. I'd like to open it up for any questions from the council or comments to the Kripes.
I would just say a comment. It's a beautiful tradition. Every year when we drive by, it's a somber and lovely reminder and a great way to honor the people that have passed and the people that worked that day. So thank you for that, and this has my full support.
Terrific. Trustee Albinson?
Thank you, Kripes.
Trustee Handler?
No, thank you. All I'd like to know, Andy, is did your hair look like that when you were younger?
Someone had to say it. Someone had to say it.
No, I think it's,
Yep, it's
Fully
off.
support this. Thank you, Craig's family. This is a wonderful tradition, echoing what my fellow colleagues said. Thank you.
I thought this was a great letter, much better than your dad's writing, so very well done.
Okay. Public comment. Is there anyone that would like to make public comment on this wonderful issue that we're addressing? Okay. May I have a motion to approve the placing of flags on the Village Green in memory of the September 11th terrorist attack victims?
So moved. Second.
And that's a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No one opposed. Unanimous support. Have at it. Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thanks so much.
Appreciate it.
Okay, we'll move on to item 7, establishment of the consent agenda. Does any trustee wish to remove any item on the consent agenda for a separate vote? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve the final form of the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
And that's a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We'll go to item 8, approval of the consent agenda. Deputy Manager Kristen Kazinas will read each item of the consent agenda.
Approval of the Village Council minutes from the July 15th, 2025 regular meeting. Approval of the warrant list dated August 1st, 2025 to August 14th in the amount of $1,946,016.77. Resolution number R64, 2025, approving a seventh amendment to a lease agreement between the Village of Winnetka and the United States Postal Service. And resolution number R66, 2025, approving change order number 1 with Her Construction Incorporated for sewer relining work.
Thank you, Kristen. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda by omnibus vote?
So moved.
And that's a roll call vote.
Trustee Albinson?
Yes.
Trustee Orsick? Yes. Trustee Handler?
Yes.
Trustee Apatow?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Kristen. I hope that this position next to me here and next to Trustee Orsick feels comfortable, and it'll continue to get more comfortable as time goes on. We'll move on to item number 9, ordinances and resolutions. Ordinance number MC 1/2025, amending Title 9 of the Winnetka Village Code to prohibit the sale of illicit THC products in Kratom. And this is being considered for introduction and possible adoption. On April 15th, 2025, Village Council suggested deferring the item in order to research additional information regarding illicit THC and Kratom. Tonight, Council will consider the ordinance prohibiting the sales of such products within the village. Attorney Stu Weiss of Elrod Freeman is here from the Village Attorney's Office to provide an additional presentation and information. Stu, thank you for being here. We appreciate it.
President Dearborn, trustees, thank you so much for having me here today. I'm unfortunately at that age where I sometimes need my readers and sometimes need my distance vision, and I still haven't sprung for bifocals yet, so pardon me if I keep switching. Tonight, I'm going to do a little bit deeper dive into the subject that was previously presented to you earlier this year. And it deals with the fact that we have a number of substances which have kind of proliferated out into retail locations, both in Illinois and nationwide, that really fall within a gray area. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about statutory definition of cannabis, how it's regulated in Illinois. I'm not going to spend too much time on that. That's the world that we live in. I'm going to talk about intoxicating hemp products, how they have emerged over the past few years as a result of some kind of unfortunate loopholes in legislation and some very unique market dynamics. And then we're also going to speak to the substance known as kratom, which is often kind of grouped in with these substances, but is distinct. You're not the first community that is wrestling with this. A number of our other clients have been trying to figure out what level of regulation, if any, to apply to these substances, how to go about it. I'm also going to talk about some movement that's happening at both the state and federal level that may lighten some of the burden on you. So, although you haven't seen this particularly too much in the village, although there may be one retail location that's selling kratom, you don't have to drive far to see a proliferation of smoke and vape shops. Not even those, you can see it in gas stations, truck stops, and where you're seeing signs like the ones up on the screen, kratom, vape, CBD, THC, Delta 9, Delta 10. You're seeing a lot of these terms that are just popping up, often in bright red neon. And what is happening here? This is not what was supposed to happen when Illinois moved to legalize cannabis. Illinois first legalized medical cannabis in 2015. It moved on in 2019 to legalize adult recreational use. At the time, the story was that Illinois was going to learn from the mistakes of other states. Places like California, where there had been a gray market for decades, or not decades, probably about 15 years, where there had been a number of unregulated retail shops. Places like Colorado, where the regulated market was opened up too fast and there were too many dispensaries. Illinois was going to learn from that. There was going to be a limited set of dispensaries. They were going to be rolled out in a very rational way. They were all going to be very high-quality establishments. Minors were not going to be allowed in. All the products would be tested. All the products would be tested for potency, consistency, and contamination. The retail experience would be much more akin to an Apple store than a head shop. All those promises. And that's how it started. If you go into these places today, it does feel much more Cheech and Chong than Apple Store. I'm going to keep comments like that to a minimum. There's a lot of fun editorializing that we can do on this subject. I'm going to be very Joe Friday unless you really want jokes. I got jokes, but we're not going to dwell on that too much tonight. So how did this happen? The answer is that it was a mix of legislative loopholes, like I said, some weird market dynamics. We're going to have to learn just a little bit of botany and a little bit of chemistry, and then we'll talk about the solutions that you guys can bring. So this all starts in 2018 with the Federal Farm Bill. In 2018, a lot of people don't realize, but Congress took a little noticed but very significant step in partially decriminalizing the plant known as cannabis. What they did was they looked at the cannabis plant and said, you know, this plant, which has been demonized, which has been vilified, which has been on the controlled substances schedule for a very long time, does actually have some very innocuous benefits, especially if it's cultivated in a way that it basically is what is referred to as hemp. Hemp is cannabis sativa. It's the same plant, but it is basically cultivated in a way that it is, or was thought to be, psychoactively inert. And the way that the way this was supposed to be measured was through low concentrations of one particular substance within the plant, which is delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol. And so that was at the time perceived as really the key substance that made marijuana a psychoactive drug. So if you could cultivate the cultivate the plant in a certain way, it's actually a pretty useful plant. George Washington grew it. It was used for rope. It can be used for a number of different materials, clothing, paper. It was seen as an agricultural, kind of just a good commodity crop if it could be regulated. So the Farm Bill basically said, if you can cultivate cannabis so it has no more than 0.3% concentration of THC, it is considered industrial hemp, and it is allowed. It can be cultivated, it can be sold at wholesale, products can be derived from it, and those products can be derived at retail. Because the assumption was that no one could take a hemp product, ingest it, and get the physical high that is so often associated with cannabis. Now, no matter what Peter has told you, lawyers are inherently lazy, and we copy and paste things. Most legislators or the people who write laws were lawyers. They're equally as lazy. They copy things. They copy definitions, most importantly. So this concept of industrial hemp, this threshold, was copied from the federal level down into state laws across the nation, notably into the Illinois Industrial Hemp Act, where they defined industrial hemp as the cannabis sativa L plant having no more of this magic number, 0.3% total THC available. And that, in turn, was referenced by the Cannabis Regulation and Tax Act. The CRTA is the Adult Use Act. That is the act from 2019 that allowed recreational cannabis to be grown, processed, and sold in Illinois. And in the very definition of cannabis, it says marijuana, hashish, and other substances that are identified as including any parts of the plant cannabis sativa, except, highlighted language there, cannabis does not include industrial hemp. So cannabis is cannabis unless it's not cannabis, but it's industrial hemp. Okay. So that is if you want to call it a legal fiction, if you want to call it a poorly drafted loophole, whatever. That is the that is the statutory regime that we went forward with. The Cannabis Regulation and Tax Act actually set up a really robust regulatory system where it assigned different regulatory authorities, agencies for almost every step actually every single step in the production chain for legal cannabis. Dispensaries are regulated by the Illinois Department of Finance and Professional Regulation. That particular agency looks at everything from how the security cameras are set up to how the garbage goes out and how waste cannabis is supposed to be chopped up, mixed with mulch, basically rendered completely inert. The regulations for the legal cannabis market are about half a phone book thick, and they do cover every link in the chain. And this is partially because Illinois was the 11th state. It was not the first state to legalize, it was the 11th state. So they had a lot of chances to look at how other states' practices, and they put them to work. Almost every other link in the chain is regulated by the Department of Agriculture, whether it be cultivation centers, processors, infusers, even transporters, all are regulated by the Department of Agriculture. The Department of Agriculture took a little while to catch up, but the Department of Agriculture does testing. It does testing for potency of particular products, whether it be the actual cannabis flower that you can buy, or whether it be gummies or some of these other products that are derived from it. It looks for potency. It looks for consistency, so the batch is the same. The gummies that you buy in June are the same potency as the ones that you buy in August. And also contaminants. Contamination could be things that inadvertently get into any agricultural product, bugs, other just substances, pesticides, and then any other ingredients that you're not supposed to have, mold, things like that. The legal cannabis market is regulated and tested for all of those things. In addition to this very robust regulatory structure, there was an equally robust taxation regime regime that was put in place that imposed taxes not only at the wholesale level, but also at the retail level, not only at the state level, but at the local level. And this has resulted in a large amount of revenue for both states and local governments. Over $450 million in 2024 alone, resulting from $2 billion in retail sale. That's 1 year. So this has definitely generated revenue for the coffers of state and local governments. The result to the end consumer is that Illinois also has some of the highest prices per unit of cannabis. The taxes add up, this whole kind of lasagna of taxes add up to between 25 to 35% of the retail price of cannabis. So you have a very high price product, very high tax product. In addition to the operational regulations, in addition to the high taxes, Illinois really tried to do some very proactive steps to be fair about how it set up this new industry. And it had these very lofty goals of including social equity applicants, which were going to be applicants who were going to get licenses for dispensaries and other businesses that were going to come from communities that were impacted by the war on drugs, people who had previously served time for that, veterans, any other litany of disadvantaged persons. The downside of this is that this process was very cumbersome, it was very complicated, and it immediately got gummed up by a lot of litigation. So after, I think, the first 150 licenses were issued, the process basically froze for 2 years due to a number of lawsuits that said that the licensing process was unfair. What did this result in? This resulted in basically a monopoly or a oligopoly by a number of multi-state operators who had the majority of these 150 licenses. That's loosened up somewhat, and there are more of these licensed dispensaries that are now operating. Approximately 250, number goes up a little bit every month, that are active licensed dispensaries in Illinois. That may sound like a lot, but when you compare it to other states, it is not per capita, especially given our population density, as high as other states. For those of you who may vacation in Michigan, Michigan has over 1,000 dispensaries with over 660 recreational. Michigan has a much smaller population than ours and actually legalized much later. Why am I going through all this? I'm trying to set the stage of this to how this problem arose. Basically, you had a highly regulated product, a highly taxed product that resulted in very high prices. You had limited supply, and you had definite demand from both the gray and the black market. And that created pressure which was looking for a release valve. Before I talk to you about the results of that release valve, I have to take a quick detour into botany and chemistry, and I promise this will be brief. But it's a little bit important to understand because it's very easy to get lost in some of these very technical terms. The first term I want to talk about is cultivar. For those of you who go to farmers markets or those of you who garden, it's a term that is very common in botany, but it is the idea that you take basically the same plant, you breed it selectively for specific traits, and you get very different outcomes. And the example up here is what is an apple. I have a picture of a Gala, Golden Delicious, Granny Smith, different textures, different sweetnesses, different uses. Some are better for baking, some are better for to put peanut butter on, some are better for salad. The whole idea is they're all apples. They've been bred selectively to have very different traits, so traits that were accentuated intentionally. The next term I'm going to give you is isomerization. This comes from chemistry. And this is a little bit more complex, and I don't have a great picture for it. Actually, I do have a good picture for it. It's this one, which is the idea that you can take a molecule or a chemical compound that has a molecule that's made up of different elements, and you can combine it in different ways, that it has all the same neutrons, protons, it has all the same basic elements put together, you put it together a little bit differently, it results in a different actual chemical isomer, which is just a variation. And this is specifically about cannabis, when it was legalized, was not a very well-studied plant. That's partially because it was on the Controlled Substances Act, and there was a lot of discouraging at the policy level to do research on it. Talked about that definition of what is industrial hemp, and it really focused on THC and delta-9 THC, because the perception was that that is the one part of the cannabis plant that gets you high. And if we can just zero in on that, we can create this legal definition that basically cuts off inert plants from psychoactive plants. Well, someone probably should have asked a chemist about this, because the cannabis plant has over 100 different compounds that can have potentially psychoactive impacts. They're called cannabinoids. It's a fun word to say. But when we talk about all these different variations, CBD, delta-8 THC, delta-9 THC, we've already talked about that, delta-10 THCO. These are different chemical compounds that are present in the plant that chemists have basically been able to accentuate either through botany or through chemistry, and draw out, extract, and result in substances that have a lot of psychoactive impacts. And that is why we are seeing these products that are being sold that give all the promise of regulated cannabis, and I say promise in kind of a derogatory way, that it will get someone high, but for some reason don't need to be sold in a licensed dispensary. We're going to take a quick detour here into kratom. Kratom is a completely distinct plant. It is not related to the cannabis plant. It is an botanically independent plant. It naturally occurs in Southeast Asia. It is something that has been consumed by those cultures for a very long time. And the uses are just anecdotally, to combat fatigue, curb pain, calm anxiety, seems to have a different impact on different people. There, as I think was talked about at some of the public comment that was made, was that there are 2 active compounds in kratom, mitragynine, which is really the dominant compound, which is documented to have mild stimulant effects. Some people say it replaces caffeine. Some people say it replaces their Excedrin when they have a headache. This plant also has another compound, which is 7-hydroxymitragynine. This appears in much smaller doses in naturally derived kratom, but it has also been documented to have opioid-like effects, somnolent-like effects, psychoactive effects, and is definitely much more of a cause for concern. Both of these are present in naturally growing kratom plants. This product, unlike cannabis, largely unregulated. And when I say unregulated, it's not considered a controlled substance under federal drug laws. It has not been banned in Illinois. In fact, there's only one law in the Illinois statutes that mentions kratom, and that's the Kratom Control Act. All the Kratom Control Act says is you can't sell to any person under 18. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration, until very recently, has made very little comment about kratom. They've kind of done what is their version of no comment, which is they've said that it cannot be legally marketed as a therapeutic drug or marketed as a dietary supplement. All you have to do is walk down the supplement aisle, though, at places like Whole Foods or Sunset Foods, and you will see a proliferation of plants and things that are now marketed as supplements. So the supplement industry itself is highly unregulated. An interesting thing that just came out, though, in July 29th of this past year, the FDA, under the current administration, put out a press release that said they are looking at 7-OH, this 7-hydroxymitragynine products that may be scheduled. No action has been taken, but I think they're giving some indication that that's going to be looked at. Okay, so what's the impact? The impact is that you have a proliferation of these products, both the unregulated hemp and kratom, that no one's really taking responsibility for at the federal level or any of the state levels. You don't have testing for potency or contaminants. Aside from the Kratom Control Act, there's no minimum sales age. So for unregulated hemp, conceivably that could be sold to anyone. Most places that sell Delta-9 THC are smart enough to know that a great way to get shut down is probably to sell to underage people, so that hasn't been as big a problem, but it definitely, that threat is still out there. No restrictions on advertising or signage, no labeling requirements. So even without the testing, no one's actually making representations of what's in these products. Minimum taxes collected is just basically a retail product. So there's no additional sales tax benefit either to the state or municipalities. No limit on the number of businesses that sell this. And what's interesting is, we can make fun of Springfield as much as we want. We can talk about the dysfunction of our state government. But quite honestly, I'm a native Texan. And I was back there, I was back in Dallas for a family event, and I noticed how many hemp dispensaries there are. There are over 8,000 hemp dispensaries in Texas alone. Texas has been one of the most conservative states with regard to not allowing adult use cannabis, but they allow this unregulated hemp to proliferate. And there was actually a bill that was trying to shut that down, which passed the Texas Assembly and was vetoed by the governor. So this is not the only state that's actually dealing with this. As I said, if you ask both the federal and state agencies who's responsible for regulating these, they'll throw up their hands. They will pass the buck. And it has fallen more and more to local governments to regulate this, specifically the sale at the local level. We've assisted a number of our clients in municipal bans and regulations. The first communities that looked to actually regulate these types of substances found that they were being sold at places that had tobacco licenses, tobacco retail licenses. So they, Elk Grove Village, I think, was the first that said if you have a tobacco license, you can't sell this. And a number of those businesses decided they wanted to keep selling either tobacco or nicotine-based vapes rather than these products, so they took them off the shelves very quickly. After that, a number of communities, especially home rule communities, started taking broader action, banning the sale of unregulated hemp products, and then also kratom as well. Chicago has looked at doing, has really kind of sat on its hands, except for specific aldermen who have actually implemented by-ward bans. So there are wards where you can buy this in Chicago, and there's a number, especially on the southwest side, where you cannot. There have been communities that impose minimum sales ages. Some have looked at actually doing local dosage requirements, imposing distances from schools, and even looked at imposing local taxes. All of these are possible under home rule. The problem is that the more complex you get, the more burden that is on staff to actually figure out how to regulate, even test these products, do inspections. And that's always the threat when you try and do very complex or granular regulations at the local level. As I mentioned, there have been some state and federal efforts. There was a possibility that the 2026 Farm Bill would actually redefine industrial hemp to broaden and basically say that you couldn't have any form of THC, not just Delta-9. That I don't believe that that has actually made that into the bill. As I said, the Texas Senate bill, they tried to shut down this whole industry in Texas, and the governor vetoed it in a kind of a surprising move. So across the country, you're seeing this being pushed down to the local level. The ordinance that was presented to you and that is back on your agenda tonight is pretty simple. What it does is it creates a general prohibition on the sale of illicit THC products and kratom. It doesn't prohibit possession. It doesn't impel the chief and his officers to go around checking people's homes or checking their bags when they're driving back into town to see if they're possessing this. What it simply says is that retail stores in Winnetka would not be able to sell these products. Your zoning code already does not provide for an opportunity for a licensed cannabis dispensary to locate in Winnetka. So that whole regime that I talked about of the inspections, the security cameras, the limits, that type of business is not available to come into the village. The question then is, why would any retail facility be allowed to sell these products? And for communities that have allowed dispensaries, the analogy that I give is, well, you may have a Binny's in your town, but you don't allow people to sell moonshine. And to a certain extent, unregulated products, are the equivalent of unregulated intoxicating products. I'm not making a value judgment as to whether cannabis or unregulated hemp or kratom are societally good or societally bad. What I'm saying is that when you put unregulated with those things, you're taking away the protections that the state in its wisdom has tried to impose with regard to testing, with regards to sales limits, and that's what this ordinance attempts to accomplish. I'm happy to answer any questions. I knew I threw a lot at you right there, but I'm happy to respond to any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you, Stu. Before we go to questions, Chief, would you like to make any comments? You made comments in the agenda item, and I think we all saw that. Why don't we have any questions for Mr. Weiss, and then we'll open up for public comment?
I thought it was very thorough. I mean, I know more about this than I ever thought I would.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm ready to open up a store, but no, it was very thorough, and it kind of understand distinctions. It is complex, so
Yeah.
I appreciate it. All good.
Okay, good. Down here? No comments? Okay. Thank you very much, Stu. We really appreciate it. At this point, we'll open this agenda item up for public comment. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to make public comment on this agenda item? Come on up and let us know your thoughts.
Right. Hello, Village Board. My name is Jim Pratt, and I spoke back in April, actually, back when this was originally proposed. I would just like to have some follow-up comments there. So, wanted to speak specifically to Kratom again tonight and talk about, I believe last time it was covered by myself, and there were two others here as well that were speaking about keeping Kratom available for sale. There were the reasons of use were captured in that conversation. The safety profile that is established was discussed. And the differentiation between Kratom and 7-OH products was a big point of that conversation. And I would like to talk a lot about that, as that has been a significant focus as of late, as was mentioned by Mr. Weiss with the recent scheduling attempt by the FDA, or intent to schedule.
Mr. Pratt, if you could keep your comments to 3 minutes.
Oh, certainly.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, so essentially there was since then there has been an article released by the former director of the CDC on the Hill, who spoke about the proliferation of 7-OH products which masquerade as natural kratom. And those are synthetically concentrated of that compound that was mentioned, 7-hydroxymetrogenine. And he went on to mention that the FDA's own data has shown that the safety of natural kratom itself is evident, and said that there needs to be a strong distinction between natural, unadulterated kratom and these concentrated 7-hydroxymetrogenine products. Furthermore, the FDA, during their intent to schedule notice, they actually clarified specifically. They said, we don't care about natural kratom and the trace amounts of 7-hydroxymetrogenine in there. It's actually closer to 0.02% compound that has within it. But they actually invited a kratom advocate up on the stage to speak to how kratom has saved her life and how she is concerned about the proliferation of these 7-hydroxymetrogenine compounds that show up in stores, are advertised as kratom, and give kratom a bad name because they frequently kill people, and or they can kill people rather, and in tox screens it looks like kratom. So I wanted to mention that there are 18 states that do regulate kratom, and they have Kratom Consumer Protection Acts in place where they remove the synthetic alkaloids and make sure that unadulterated kratom is protected and available for purchase. There are actually several bills in the Illinois state Senate right now, legislature, that are up for debate with similar statutes in place that would basically remove the adulterated and unnatural kratom products out there and keep only the safe stuff available for purchase. It would also, I believe almost all of them, increase the age to 21. So I would encourage for this particular ordinance to work on separating the natural kratom products which have established safety and are noted by not even being touched by the FDA or by the CDC, or mentioned as even a potential danger by them, to be separated from these known dangers of 7-hydroxymetrogenine content, and keep the good stuff available for sale and follow the example of this other legislation at the state level and at other states, and keep the good stuff available and remove the bad.
Thank you, Mr. Pratt. We appreciate that. King, are you here to comment on this issue? Okay, all right. You're going to wait a few more minutes. We'll bring it back up here. I would note that there were a couple of public comments that were circulated to trustees. Hopefully everyone saw those, just for the record. And before we move forward on this, thoughts on this topic?
I was one of the people that wanted more time the last time that this came up because I didn't feel we knew enough. And between then and now, I feel like we've learned a lot, both with this presentation and actually looking into it on our own. And I can appreciate that there's safe kratom and not safe, but then we're also asking our police department to be monitoring what items are for sale in stores. And I feel like this can be bought in Glenview or Skokie or ordered on the internet and delivered to your home. And we're a community with many kids. We pride ourselves on our kids being able to come into town and go to the stores. And I don't see the need to allow this to be sold there when our chief of police is concerned that it's already having a negative impact on the kids. And so I would be in favor of our ordinance.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I look at this and I think Winnetka should be a little different. When we had this discussion of do we have a dispensary, it was a pretty clear no. Driving another 3 minutes, I just think at some point we have to be different. And and I agree with Bridget what she said. There's natural kratom and unnatural kratom and psychedelic. I'm not trying to be scared about it. I just don't see the need. You can go 3 minutes away and pick it up. I would kind of keep Winnetka kind of the reason when we talked about dispensaries, why we didn't want them. There's just no need to try and have the police figure out what's what. There are so many other ways to get them in so many other spots. We're not doing it for the little tax revenue that we might get either, which is why there are so many dispensaries too. So I would be in favor of just saying no.
Okay, thank you.
I agree with the comments already made.
Okay.
Yep, I would be supportive of this. To the point, I'd love to be on the forefront of everything in Winnetka, but this is an area I think there's still a lot of unknowns. The lack of control over the quality of some of the products. I don't think this is what the majority of the residents in our community would want. And again, as pointed out, we live in a large metropolitan area where we're not preventing the ownership of this or the use of the product. It's just we're not going to sell it. So people, if they want it, they are able to get it. So I'm supportive of this.
Okay, well, before we move on, I'd like to thank our chief for bringing this issue up to us a few months ago, going through the process and helping educate us. Stu Weiss, I'd like to thank you and Elrod Freeman for providing good substantive support of this issue so that your clients can understand it and we can understand it, and they might have different views than us, but thank you for being here. We really appreciate it. There might be an appetite here for waiving introduction on this, if I'm sensing okay.
Yes.
Do I have a motion to waive introduction of ordinance number MC 01-2025?
So moved.
Second.
That's a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No? May I have a motion to adopt ordinance number MC 01-2025?
So moved.
Second.
And that is a roll call vote.
Trustee Albinson?
Yes.
Trustee Orsick?
Yes.
Trustee Handler?
Yes.
Trustee Hapetoff?
Yes.
Okay, that passes. Mr. Pratt, thank you for being here. We
Appreciate
appreciate
it,
you
though.
being here.
Yeah, thank you. That was excellent. I learned a lot.
So now we'll move on to, where are we at? This is number 9. 9B. Okay. Resolution number R67-2025, approving and authorizing the adoption of the Village of Winnetka 2025 Affordable Housing Plan. And this is being considered for adoption. Tonight, council will consider a second amendment to the Affordable Housing Plan. Our Community Development Director, Scott Mangum, is here to present. Scott, welcome.
Yes, thank you, President Dearborn, Village Council. As mentioned, this is regarding the Affordable Housing Plan. A little bit of background on how this has come to us. So the state of Illinois passed the Affordable Housing Planning and Appeals Act back in 2003. This was to regulate or to address the shortage of affordable housing within the state, specifically to look at non-exempt municipalities. There are those municipalities that have over 1,000 population and less than 10% of its housing stock that's affordable. What that means as far as being affordable is being defined by the Act here as housing units that are available that would be affordable to home buyers that earn at 80% of the regional median income, or renters at 60% of the regional median household income. And then for those households, they should not be spending more than 30% of their gross income on housing costs. That's kind of the formula and the definition from the state. So background with APA for Winnetka, in 2005, in reaction to the 2003 Act, in March, the village adopted the initial affordable housing plan. In April, the village passed a referendum to become a home rule community, and then in May, adopted an amended affordable housing plan. That affordable housing plan called for the Plan Commission to do some study and report on affordable housing. Plan Commission did that between 2005 and 2010. However, at that point, the Village Council did not choose to make any changes or further amend the affordable housing plan. So that's the current one that's in place, is from the 2005, the amended affordable housing plan. More recently, in April of last year, the village was notified by IDA that Winnetka is, again, a non-exempt local government, has less than 10% affordable units, and thereby is required to submit a plan to the state within 18 months. So that would be by October 1st of this year. Some of the data in the report that the state compiled, Winnetka is one of 44 communities out of nearly 1,300 in the state that are listed as non-exempt local governments. The data on the screen shows the number of affordable units based on the American Community Survey data. So 105 owner units that would be affordable, 54 rental units with a total of 159, and 3.6% of the housing stock in Winnetka. So in order to get to 10%, it would need another 277 of the existing units would have to become affordable in order to meet that 10% and thereby be exempt as a community. So APA requires 8 components, minimum components for an affordable housing plan. Those are on the screen here and were reviewed by the Plan Commission. So a statement of the total number of housing units necessary, that's a 277 number to become exempt. Identification of lands that are most appropriate for the construction of affordable housing. That's identified in the plan as the B districts, B1, B2, and the C1, C2, and C2 overlay zoning districts as being most appropriate areas within the village. List of potential incentives that could be included to encourage affordable housing within the community. Description of housing market conditions and essentially barriers to affordable housing within the community, notably high land values. Plan or strategies to eliminate or mitigate those constraints in the plan, and the updated plan is to have further study by the Plan Commission on these areas. Choosing one of the 3 goals that are stated by the state, in this case, a minimum of 5 percentage point increase in the affordable percentage of units within Winnetka. Proposed timelines to commence within 24 months. So in the plan, that's the Plan Commission reporting back by January 2027. And then for communities that previously determined as non-exempt, a summary of actions have been taken previously. So those are included in the plan as well, including relaxing availability of coach houses to be reused, some that become non-conforming, some bonuses and plan developments that were put in, some additional density that was allowed. So those are documented within the plan as well. So with that, the Plan Commission considered the plan on June 25th. After hearing the staff presentation and not receiving any public comment, the Commission discussed the plan. Members discussed data included in the report, requirements under APA, the relation to the comprehensive plan, and options to add housing diversity within the village. Ultimately, by a vote of 7-1, the Commission recommended approval of the plan. So with that, this evening, the Village Council can consider adoption of Resolution R67-2025 that would authorize the adoption of the 2025 Affordable Housing Plan. With that, the village would transmit that plan to IDA. That concludes the staff presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Scott. Questions for Scott before we go to public comment? Any questions? Nothing yet? Okay. At this point, we'll ask for public comment from the audience, and please come to the podium and give us your thoughts.
Good evening, King Poor, 735 Walden. It was 14 years ago, April 2011. Rob Bahan was a brand new village manager. That's how things come full circle. And I was a trustee then, and this village council chamber was packed. I mean, packed to the walls with people. Reporter from the Tribune, story on the front page later, and the affordable housing issue for Winnetka was hot. And it was, there was strong opinions on both sides about what to do, and it was continued over the course of the summer. And as Scott mentioned in his good presentation, eventually the village decided not to do anything more than, there were a few small things, but it didn't choose to do much anything other than kind of shelve the whole thing. And as it turns out, it became kind of the taboo subject for Winnetka politics for the next, I mean, for every election practically. Talking about affordable housing was a no-go, and you just didn't want to touch affordable housing. And it remained that way. So this whole issue has really been in hibernation now for 14 years. And it was an issue where there was strong opinions on both sides here. And I remember even there was a number of faith leaders from synagogues, churches who spoke up in favor of it, and a lot of other people spoke up in favor of doing something. I did myself at the time, but eventually it was tabled. And so here we are 14 years later, and I commend Scott and the fact that you're bringing this up again, because Winnetka's known for many wonderful things, but after 14 years, I just commend you for wanting to raise this conversation again, because Winnetka does not want to be known as a community that doesn't want to talk about affordable housing. I mean, of course, we're a different kind of community. We're unique in many ways, and this whole idea of affordable housing has never been a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. It has to be tailored to the character and the requirements of a community. But that does not mean that Winnetka should continue just not to have a conversation about it. So I'm really pleased to see that you're going to have a conversation about it. I see this as just a beginning about what might be done in Winnetka. And I'm hopeful that this comes out of the deep freeze after 14 years, and that we can say that Winnetka is not a community that wants to avoid talking about this. So thank you, Scott, for all the work you've done, and I understand that there's other things that might be done going forward. I know this is a complex issue. I mean, I've talked to somebody from the Community Partners in Affordable Housing, kind of like the gold standard in Illinois about this. There's a lot of things that can be done. So my comment tonight is one of just appreciation for what I hope will be a turning of the page on this whole issue, and it can be looked at in a way that it's a subject that can be discussed in Winnetka. So thank you.
King, thank you for coming. That's great perspective. We appreciate that.
Yeah, I always kind of reach back to the old days. But
yeah, the good old days.
But I was just thinking, because really, Rob was a brand new village manager. Yeah. So here we are.
Well, that's a good perspective for us to appreciate here. Why don't we bring this issue back to the dais here and council thoughts? Kim, we'll start with you.
See that. One of the things I guess I felt good about this plan is that there were numerous references to our comprehensive plan, which so much work has put into that, and certainly that's new information since the last time we looked at it, to have a plan that's real, the 2020 plan that's really reflective of today. And I think there's numerous comments, again, recognizing what we can and can't do, that's also in keeping with what the goals of our village are in terms of development. So I felt that that was a strength of the plan.
Okay. Trustee Albinson.
I'm in favor of approving this recommendation. As most of you know, I've spent the last 15 years of my career, a significant amount of it committed to affordable housing. And King's comments, I appreciate. I find it very interesting that 14 years ago, we had a packed house. And aside from King making comments tonight in favor of this, and Scott presenting and the officer here attending, no one is here. What a change in the perception from the community or just the public in general. And this is not unique to Winnetka. This is a non-issue across many communities. Now it's sort of it's a given. In fact, sometimes I like to tell people I was into affordable housing when it wasn't cool, and now it's cool. So I'm in favor of this. I think it's a step in the right direction. There are obviously many things that need to come. It's an important dialogue for us to continue to have publicly. As some of you may know, this was an important topic for me when I joined council, although I didn't necessarily sit here and make it a strong platform position, but the folks on the caucus, when they interviewed me, this was a topic that I brought up. So I'm appreciative to staff, village attorney, and staff for bringing this forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Kirk. Appreciate that. Trustee Orsic.
I would echo what Trustee Handler said about the 2040 plan and the things that we talked about in there being incorporated into this, and I'm in favor of this ordinance.
Okay. Trustee Apatow?
Sorry about that. Glad you're here. You always give us very balanced perspective. I figured you can't say this council doesn't take on the hard issues. I mean, we're just done with IMEA and we're running right to affordable housing. But no, I mean, conceptually, I get it and it makes sense. King's perspective on what not one size fits all and the character of the village, that's, I think, where you get, that's why this room was packed and with both sides debating it. And it is a debate, and I'm sure we'd have the same thing once it gets to that point. It is complex. Topic 14 years ago, I don't think it's changed that much. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't be talking about it, I agree. I know we're dealing with, also senior housing issues we're talking about, so there's a lot of things regarding housing that we've got to try and fit into this little village and figure it out. So I appreciate the perspectives.
Okay, thank you. For those who ever look at the video or the record here, there are 14 pages of this plan that I believe our village attorney, Scott, drafted this? Both, the two of you drafted this together. It's really interesting information about the village, about this process. We're going to be asking our Plan Commission under Chair Danley to do some work on this front over the next year plus, bring information back to us. So this is more the beginning, not the end of this issue, but I'm glad that we have taken it on. To Trustee Apatow's point, it's something that we should do, and we did it, and we'll move forward and go to the next steps on this front. So, Scott, thank you so much for your work on this. I think that anyone else have any final comments before we move on? Okay.
That's good.
May I have a motion to adopt resolution number R67, 2025?
So moved.
Second.
And that is a roll call vote.
Trustee Albinson?
Yes.
Trustee Apatow? Trustee Orsic?
Yes.
Trustee Handler?
Yes.
Okay, that passes. Thank you very much. We move on to item 10, old business, we have none. New business, item 11, we have none. We do have some appointments, and I'd like to, this has to do with the Plan Development Commission, which turns over every couple of years, changes of leadership and so on. And so we appoint the whole group with the same termination date of their terms. And so we're going to just run through these, and we'll ask for an approval of the whole group once I'm completed. I'd like to appoint Layla Danley as chairperson of the Plan Development Commission. Term will expire April 30, 2027. All the terms expire April 30, 2027. Appoint Matthew Bradley as vice chairman. on the Plan Development Commission. Appoint Jonathan Alt to a full term on the Plan Development Commission. Appoint Mamie Case to a full term on the Plan Development Commission. Appoint Mark Haller, full term on the Plan Development Commission. Appoint Lynn Hanley to a full term on the Plan Development Commission. Appoint Catherine Lester to a full term on the Plan Development Commission. Appoint Mike Nielsen to a full term on the Plan Development Commission. And appoint Kate Van Vlack to a full term on the Plan Development Commission. Again, all terms expire April 30, 2027. And without objection, may I have a motion to approve appointments A through I as I noted them by omnibus vote?
Second.
And that is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, those appointments pass. Thank you very much. Closed session, none. And adjournment. May I have a motion to adjourn?
Bridget?
So moved.
Second.
And that's a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No nays. We stand adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it, and thanks for everyone for being here tonight.
Yes.